Jake, and we have Jessica on virtual, and Patricia may join us at some point. That's the roll call. Acceptance of the minutes from the meeting held April 2nd will be acted upon.
Make a motion we accept them as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on those minutes? No? All those in favor? Jessica? In favor?
Yes, I'm in favor.
All right, thank you. All right. Agenda adjustments.
None.
Perfect. On to reports. We'll start with Debbie with the high school report.
We had a meeting Monday. A lot of the members were virtual. There were Gary, Ted, the three Debbies. There were three of us on the board now. And then everyone else was able to log in virtually. Interesting meeting as it is here. Lots of things going on. You know, they're still working on budget, as we all are. They did hire a new superintendent. They have hired Jim Chassie as superintendent. He was there in the meeting virtually, and excited to start in July is when I think that's when Gary's done. So there'll be a lot of coordination between the two superintendents to get things on board. Mr. Walsh did make a presentation on a proposal for graduation possibilities. It was a very nice presentation of some possibilities. So we'll see how that goes. I know that it's a work in progress, and that was mentioned in the meeting that it was work in progress. But you know, an opportunity to give students some way to, Mr. Harris did indicate, they did talk about adjustments to the school calendar. As of right now, last day of school will be June 12th, with seniors finishing on June 5th. Mr. Gagne's going to put in a request for a waiver with the commissioner for the difference in the days. Like anything else on this sliding scale that we're all working on, you know, that's could change, who knows, but that's the game plan. And Mr. Harris indicated that, you know, quite honestly, the date of the school ending is really kind of immaterial at this point. You have to have a certain number of days, but the education that our students have been able to obtain this year is not up to where any of us would like it to be. So, you know, when you're counting the number of days, it's students are getting frustrated. Are they getting what they need out of this academic year? Probably not, but
we have a similar discussion. We've dealt with this here with Ed, and we got a plan to present to you guys tonight.
And but I think that's basically it. You know, everybody's hoping that this will resolve and life will assume a different kind of normal, but some kind of normal.
Right. All right. Thank you. Obviously, I'm sure we haven't had anything for Spruce. High School Advisory Group. Leslie, I'm sure we haven't had.
Do you hear that, Leslie?
Yours, Leslie?
Sorry, I just had to get to my microphone. I had to get the chat box up. In terms of the high school parent council, we did meet last month. Mr. Walsh had done one presentation for a graduation proposal, which was more of a drive-up, not a drive-in, a drive-up, drive-through graduation proposal. That was prior to meeting with a group of, I think he had like 20 students participate in a group meeting. So following that presentation that was presented Monday is his newest proposal for graduation based upon student feedback. Students were really adamant about marching. They wanted the experience of marching. That was really big for them. And so he tweaked his plan. His team of people tweaked their plan. So that I think he is going to roll out. We will meet next week, next Wednesday evening. Parent Council is scheduled to meet again. And he will, I think, roll that plan out that was presented. And I thought he said it was approved by the board, but maybe still with some adjustments that need to be made. I'm not sure, Debbie, was that your understanding that they kind of approved that plan with some adjustments based upon the recommendations by the governor?
Yes, I believe so. It was, I think nothing was finalized, but they approved the work that had gone into it, and that, understanding that there would be some adjustments that would need to be made, and, I felt like it was a draft, but the board did approve that, as possibilities, understanding that that's definitely a plan, but that some things might need to be adjusted to it, so.
Yeah.
It's been very
Thank
difficult.
You. I think he did post that on Facebook today, so I'm assuming he'll get some feedback.
Right.
I think by and large that the parents are happier with this version of the plan. I think it feels to them, I don't know if you want me to go into any detail, Mr. Turner. It allows the students in a very small group. I think they're going to be partnered. They're going to sign up for a block of time with 4 other students, or 4 students total,
yep.
And they're going to have an opportunity to march through. They'll go in one door, what they consider the senior wing,
yep.
which is by the field hockey field. They'll enter that wing. They'll keep spread out. I think he's going to actually do 20 feet because of something to do with photography. And they'll have an opportunity to march down that wing and then march down the main wing to get to the gymnasium. And their parents will have dropped them off in their vehicles and kept driving. And then I think they can have up to 8 family members that will be cordoned off in the gym and identified areas for each of those 4 students, so that their parents and family members can see them receive their diploma. Their name will be announced. They'll go across. They'll be able to have their tassels switched and all of that stuff.
And they're also going to have he mentioned that they would have a table with the diploma on it, so that nobody has to hand the diploma to the student, but that the
Correct.
student would be able to pick up the diploma and walk across the stage with it.
Correct.
So it definitely
And
is
I
definitely a
think that-
different.
Well, go ahead, Debbie.
No, I said definitely a different way of doing it, but to be able to walk down that senior wing and walk across the stage, and a new normal as we're all adjusting. But I think it's definitely a good plan.
Yeah, it was the marching piece that surprised me, that the kids, because they always complain about how many hours they spend learning to march and blah,
Right.
blah, blah.
Right.
But that's the part that the group of kids really identified with as feeling like that's what they really wanted. They wanted an opportunity to march.
Yep.
So I think they'll at least have some semblance of it, and then at the conclusion, they will have a video put together with all of the speakers, the announcements, the recognition of all of the scholarships, things like that, and then it will be in one video. So we'll have each of the kids receiving their diploma, and it will be put together in a video.
He mentioned, just to tag on to that, he mentioned at the beginning of it, when we saw the presentation, of putting together basically a gift box for each student that would have their cap and gown, any awards, any honor cords, and they talked about notes from teachers and support staff and those type of things being included in that box, so that just to personalize it to each student, but so that they had something, a way for that all to be given to them.
Yes, that is correct. That's my understanding as well.
Yeah.
That was really it. We really focused our attention to the end of the year activities. We did talk a little bit about NEASC, but the primary focus, we had a very large participation, like 3 times as large a group, because of the topic. So we had a lot of senior parents log in, so it was nice to have a large group of people. But I think by and large, the parent group is really pleased with how the administration, I mean, they have really put a lot of thought and concern for the seniors and the senior parents.
All right, any more questions for Leslie? Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Superintendent report.
My report really is in the agenda. I'm gonna speak out on, you know, some of the personnel issues, update for our school plan with COVID-19. We met with ESG and started our 2-week construction meeting, so I can fill you in on that, and also kind of a brief start with the budget. That's my report is the meeting.
All right, sounds good. Principal's report. Anything to add to yours, Kurt?
Anything to add to your report, Kurt?
Sorry, I was on mute. I always get mad at other people for doing that, and I just did it myself. Nothing to add beyond what you guys have either heard or said about 1,000 times yourselves. Things are certainly different and strange right now. But nothing new to add.
I do like the video that you created. Giving Tree is my favorite book. That was very nice. If anyone hasn't seen it, go to YouTube. They put it on the bottom
That
of
was
his report.
Mrs. Jarvis's idea, and that's why she's awesome at her job.
Yes, very nice. And saw Mr. Bryan on there too. Yeah, very nice, very nice. Any more questions for Kurt?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Lori, anything to add to your report?
Just a couple of things. We currently have 39 kindergarten students signed up for next year and 27 pre-K students. And we are getting more calls. I think this week we got 2 calls of kids coming to transfer this next year, so they continue to come in. This is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I think it's quite timely. There is a lot going on, and I would say, as I said in my board report, I am very proud of our district, and I'm very proud of my staff. They have done a great job. They're really working hard to take the feedback that we're getting from parents and try to make adjustments. And I would say some of the feedback, I think is great feedback. A piece that they talked about was kids, at this point, kids need to see and hear their teachers more often. And we're talking about doing more videos that they can post that might have the directions or expectations or just a little message that parents need that support and need the kids to hear what the expectations are from their teacher. So I think teachers are working hard to do that. So overall, I would say things are going pretty well. Parents are getting, I think we're kind of hitting the end of our ability to make this work without frustration from parents and students. So we are passing out our next packet on Monday, and along with food, and teachers did locker cleanouts and got all personal items together for students and have bagged them, so we have a fair amount of work to do on Monday. That's it.
Any questions for Lori? Thank you, Lori. Carabelle.
I'll say, so with Caravel, I'd say we're starting to get some more solidified ideas for recognition night ceremony, how to honor our 8th graders who are moving on, and we're also talking about some of those other rites of passage, step-up days, virtual step-up days, things like that for our kids. We're really trying to wait until we get a little more guidance before we dive into planning that, but those are things we're working on. Nicole's gonna be presenting a little bit later about a grant, and so if you have some more specific questions, she's been in all of the team meetings and has a little bit of a more direct pipeline to some of the specifics. But I'll say that at the middle school, it's a little bit different type of education, remote learning that we're allowed to offer, because it's not just all packetized. But I think we still have seen our fair share of struggles, and it's not just students who would normally struggle. It's all kids. Kids are having a hard time with this. But again, we're working, we're modifying, we're trying to be, resourceful and have good ideas and engage kids and not harm them with new learning. And it's a challenge, though. It's not. We're trying to do something that education was not created to do.
Do we know, where are we at with all of them having what they need for laptops and internet and hotspots or?
Well, so at the middle school, we sent all our devices home 6 through 8. So our 5th graders here are still receiving packets, and that kind of goes along with what we do in the district. The 6th graders have Chromebooks, iPads for the 7th and 8th graders, and some success, some not. We do have some devices that came in from the state. Lori got 13 Chromebooks that she's going to pass out. We also supposedly have some hotspots coming in, but we haven't seen those yet. And I don't know how valuable some of that stuff is compared to what we have. But
Right.
And so, we've already started planning for what do we do to get these devices back. We know there's going to be some losses with this, but we'll be able to take care of some of that with some of the CARES Act money. Is going to be given to us. So we don't know exactly what we're getting at, but it's going to be used to offset issues with COVID-19. So it won't have to come out of our own budget, but they have them. Are they using them? Maybe not as much as we want them to, but we really aren't doing a lot of the material pass out here at Careville. It's much different than the elementary schools.
Special education. Leslie, back to you. Anything to add to your report?
I don't really have anything to add to my report. Just wanted to highlight the number of students that we have entering kindergarten next year with IEPs, and the needs of those IEPs, which will impact our budget in terms of the number of staff we need to provide services for those students. I'm still trying to work through what the needs are, because we were unfortunately not able to go out and observe the incoming kindergartners like I typically do. I have their paperwork, but usually I go out to their site with a teacher, and we're able to observe and get a better handle on what their needs might be once they enter kindergarten. We do have 5 students coming in with pretty significant needs, and 5 students that have ed tech support as part of their IEP. So we're going to have to kind of think more about that and who we have that may not need as much support now that they've developed some skills. My concern with that is I think we're going to see a period of regression for a lot of our students. This is hard for all students, and then you figure that it's equally as difficult, or if not more so, for students with disabilities that are already struggling learners, struggling with behaviors, and I think this disruption is going to be more significant. So don't want to pull back too many services prematurely. So more to come on that. We are also doing our 8th grade transition meetings with Herman High School virtually. So those are right on target. Extended school year services is going to be a challenge to plan, because I believe my recommendation will likely be that we plan to do that remotely at this point, because we have not been cleared to bring students back into the building. and it takes some coordinated effort to get extended school year services planned, whether it's remote or face-to-face. You know, because it requires, you know, a thought-out transportation system if we're doing it face-to-face. And the kids that we would be the most concerned with regression and bringing into schools are the kids that are hardest to socially distance with. So our students that need hand-over-hand assistance or struggle behaviorally and might need some physical guidance, or are developmentally not at a spot where they can consistently cover their nose and mouth when they cough and sneeze. Students that may mouth objects, things like that, those would be the kiddos that typically are majority of a good number of our students that require extended school year services. So even if we were cleared to bring them back in our building, I'm not sure it would be safe to do so for staff or for students. So, you know, we'll continue to administratively talk about that and do what's best for kids and for staff and for families.
And I'll say it's hard, that this piece of it's been exceptionally hard because we really want to support our kids, but we can't plan anything yet. We really need guidance from some others about what we're going to be allowed to do. So that makes it a challenge for us, not knowing.
I would just like to highlight our special education staff have worked incredibly hard, as have the regular education teachers. In special education, one of the challenges is each kid's plan is unique to them. And so when you're putting packets together, when you have 20 kids on your caseload in special education, that's 20 individual packets that are uniquely designed for that student. So that, you know, it becomes a slightly overwhelming task sometimes. And I think our staff, regular ed and special ed, have worked incredibly well together to make that system work. You know, they're frequently reaching out to each other and collaborating. You know, when regular ed is doing let's just say a project, working with the special education teachers about how we might adapt that for students with disabilities. So, you know, kudos to all of the staff. This is, you know, they're learning this new system of educating in the moment while they're trying to do it. So.
I agree, and the parents of special ed, it's not like they can't get together and with the other parents and help each other out. It's kind of kid by kid and parent by parent.
Right. And we have a large chunk of our students with disabilities that have limited access for whatever reason, whether they don't have the internet or they can't access it for their disability related reasons, whether it's attention or their communication or something along those lines. So that just adds another level to it.
The kindergartners that are coming in, is there more at one school versus the other? Just trying to think.
There were only 9 of them are coming in actually through CDS. One of them is coming in through, he's accessed his services this year through a medical model, but I met him last year. So it was going to be 6 for Carmel and 4 for Levant. My recommendation was for 2 of the students that actually reside in Carmel to attend school in Levant based upon their needs. They require more of the discrete trial methodology. They require more of a life skills, self-contained program, and right now we only have that offered at the Suzanne Smith School. So it'll really be just flipped the opposite. It will be 4 at Carmel and 6 in Levant.
All right. Any more questions for Leslie?
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
All right, curriculum coordinator. Melissa, anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add per se. I'm still continuing to
monitor what the feds want to do with both the CARES Act and our ESSA funding. We have some projects that we were not able to finish because we left school early. And so we're still waiting to hear what they want, what we're going to be able to do with those monies. Are we going to be able to carry them forward for next year and create new projects? Do they have to be the same projects? So I'm kind of waiting to see what the DOE is going to do with some of our title funds. And then I'll let you know what I find out. But that's the big thing that I'm watching right now. Also, the local curriculum coordinator groups, MCLA and PrEP, are both working on some resources for teachers and administrators for going back to school. So if we're going back full-time as we normally would with some restrictions, if we're doing a modified schedule, or if we're still doing remote learning. They're planning some resources for all three scenarios so that hopefully we can better prepare districts for whatever scenario we might be in. So that's what I've been working on, and I'll keep the board up to date on what I find out regarding that. Still kind of up in the air right now.
All right. Anything, questions from anyone? Melissa? Nope.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Transportation, building and grounds. Matt, anything to add to your report?
The only thing that I will add is training's always been a big thing for our district. Department of Education, Maine Department of Labor, Department of Health and Human Services, they all have required trainings of all school employees. Some are upon initial hire, some are every 3, 4, 5 years, some are annually, and especially as we have staff turnover, it gets harder and harder to make all of these trainings happen, as we have a lot of employees that work a lot of different shifts and do very different things. So I have been working with a training platform that's offered through the state called Target Solutions, and there's 23 different trainings that we offer to our employees. Not everybody has to do all 23. It really depends on their job title, but over the last couple of weeks, I have done personally all 23 of those trainings because I wanted to see the content, and I've been working on building the profiles for all of the employees, which a lot of work is going into this on the front side, but I think it's really going to help us on the back side as far as record keeping, so that when our friends from the state show up again, we're able to show them that we are in compliance and more easily hand over those training records. So that's just something in addition that I've been working on the last few weeks.
And I'll say that by joining Target Solutions, it allows us to get a discount on our insurance premiums.
Are there new trainings, Matt? I know that there's a whole list of different trainings, and like you just said, it's different for different positions and all, but have they added any new types of trainings that you haven't seen before, or is it basically, just that there's a lot of them? I'm just wondering, how state requirements change all the time. Have they thrown any different curveballs out that are requiring more, or is it basically the same?
You're just so I'm clear, what you're asking me is has the state come out with new trainings?
Correct.
Yeah, there is one. I know through Maine DHHS. It's child sexual abuse training, and that's something we're looking at right now. There seems to be a lot of confusion, not just with, throughout, on who is supposed to have that, when, who offers it, who's authorized to do that training, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Other than that, everything that we're doing now has been in place for the last couple of years.
Okay.
As a district, it is time for us to go through our suicide awareness and prevention training. That's something that's done every 4 years. We did that as a big group 4 years ago. It's time for us to repeat that. And also the mandated reporter training through Maine DHHS that's coming due for us. That's an interesting one because that actually does have an online component, that is available. So we have the option to actually bring a trainer in from DHHS, or an employee can do it online, take a quiz online, and receive their certificate online. But then you have, your suicide awareness and prevention. There is a training available in this online training platform, but the state of Maine doesn't recognize it. They don't feel that it's compliant for their standards. So there are a few trainings we will still have to do live in person, but this will significantly reduce that.
Okay, thank you.
Our general first day is we bring all the employees in to Carmel Elementary and we do trainings one after the other all day, and it's hard on everybody. With this model, we're still going to bring them in and give them time, but if they have other stuff they want to do and they want to do it on their own, they can. But there are a couple, like the suicide prevention awareness. I'm not sure the exact expectations, but I believe it has to be done in person. It has to be at least an hour. And the mandated reporter is very challenging online, and so for our employees, if we can bring somebody in like we did last time to present to us, they won't have to take a quiz. So we may do that one live if we can.
I think from my perspective, sometimes face-to-face training is better. You have the opportunity to visualize what you're hearing and ask questions. But if you're reading a paragraph and then answering questions over it, the questions that you have created in your mind, you've got nobody to ask. You've got nobody to say what if. So I think that even though they're offered online, depending on what they are, it might be more beneficial to have, the face-to-face, so that people, certainly a good portion of them can be done online, but some of them, I think, be important to sway towards the option of having the face-to-face, depending on the, on the subject matter. I think that is something to weigh out, definitely.
Suicide prevention and awareness and mandated reporting are 2 areas that we don't want to be wrong on. So I don't think they're asking too much.
No, thank you.
No, with the target, it'll automatically tell you when everybody takes it anyway.
Yeah.
Good.
That's a good system.
I just have a question with the ESG, with the work that's gonna start in this COVID stuff. I know you guys are gonna be working to try to, with the staff and all that, just to kind of keep it, but what are we gonna do for, who's gonna keep track of all that, like how many times they're in the school, and, are we gonna require them to do cleaning, the whole cleanliness and hand washing and masks, and do we have to worry about that? Do we have to, because we're gonna have staff in and out of the building also.
Yeah, I think,
who sets that, who sets those?
ESG has,
I guess.
ESG has very high standards for safety. In fact, through the bidding process, some of our local contractors struggled to be able to offer things because they had high standards, and we have some small businesses here. So the initial part that's going to be coming through, while teachers still will be around a little bit more, will be the lighting piece. Every worker is required to wear a mask at all times. They have to report in twice weekly with the project manager about their travel plans, where they've been. They have to have the temperature taken. A majority of the work just be based on the times that we have and will occur over the summer, and we will probably draw a much harder line than we have in the past with staff, because it's a lot to pull together to be, to be ready for teachers, the week before school starts, slated to start. And so, we may have to draw a harder line at times about access to the building and when rooms would be ready. But we're really hoping that a majority of the work will be done when a majority of our staff is out enjoying the summer.
But should we be taking extra should we still keep custodial staff for cleaning, if they're gonna be using restrooms and just different things like that, I mean.
Matt, do you wanna speak to your new plan this year with what's going on for custodial staff?
Sure. Typically what we've done in the last few years is we've done the team clean approach, which all the custodians go to one building and they clean the building one by one. And I really like that, and that worked well. However, that will really not work for us this summer, given the magnitude of this project. It's a very invasive project, and I just really feel that it's important for custodians to be in their own buildings on a daily basis. So each of the buildings, even right now, and some of those protocols will be adapted a little bit as we make that transition from the school year into the summer. But each building has its own set of protocols on how they track who's coming in, where they're going, and that information is all logged, and the custodians are able to see that on a daily basis, so they know the areas that they really need to put a strong focus on. Tom, the project manager at ESG, he's very good, very organized, and ESG is, obviously, as everybody is, taking this very seriously, and I feel very comfortable, especially as the summer progresses and we have less staff in and out of the buildings as well. I think it will be fine. I think it'll go very smoothly. So.
Okay. Any more questions for Matt? No? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
All right, item number 6, River Foundation grant.
So, Nicole Millsford and Brittany Taggart have been working here at the middle school on a grant for a book room. So I asked Nicole to come on if it would be a good opportunity for you guys to kind of hear the work that they're working on to procure that money, and also if you had some questions about some of the specific work that's going on here at Carabel, you could ask her. Okay. Nicole, if you want to report out.
Yep. Good evening, everyone.
Hey there.
So this past year at Carabel, we focused a lot of our professional development around the implementation of the cognitive apprenticeship model. It's a model of teaching that is research-based and focused on student-centered classroom and student engagement in the classroom. And when trying on something new, it's always important to support the students and the teacher needs. And one of the tools that is critical to the implementation of this model are instructional read-alouds. And some current research supports the use of high-quality picture books as a way to support all learners in that during those instructional read-alouds, and all learners meaning, we all get a little bit of something out of a picture book, and our struggling learners can access those literary devices better if they can see it in a picture book. And that research shows that, especially at the middle school level, it's a tool that can be very effective. So Brittany Taggart and I started to search for some books that would support teachers and students in that implementation, and we were guided towards a grant from the Libra Foundation, which is based out of Portland. We've collaborated with some knowing others for books that were high quality literature that were vetted and we checked with our teachers to see what they needed in the classroom. And so we've requested $1,700 worth of books from the grant, and to purchase these high quality read alouds. And they focus on, there's some for every content area, and we're hoping to put them in our new literacy center at Carabel Middle School. The grant does require us to seek board approval before submission, and we are ready to go as soon as, if you guys feel like you would support this for us. And really, we just are hoping to provide access to high quality text and it will be kind of our focal point for a lot of our professional development next year as well.
one
go for it.
question. Anytime that you fund something with grants, the question is, what do we need to put in place to be able to sustain it afterwards? Grants are absolutely awesome. Much appreciation for the work that goes into it. But as a board member, we know that grants they get things up and running. So looking forward, because this is something that we would want to be able to support, what would we need to be looking for, to be able to support this? Is it a budget item? Do we apply for another grant to sustain it? What would need to be in place to sustain it going forward, I guess, is the best way to phrase that.
Can I jump in?
Absolutely.
Is it okay?
That's,
so we also have, and I told Nicole this, we have about $935 at CMS in the enrichment Title V money for this year. So that money could also go towards that book room. And then looking forward, that is something that we can easily continue to write in the title funding grant, that's a grant, so that we can continue supporting that. So I do think that, Deb, that there's some sustainability there with our ESSA funds.
okay.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I just, and that being said, by using those monies to fund it, will that take away from something else? I guess what I'm asking is it something that we as a board should look to, making sure that we have some cushion there to support it if we needed it? You folks have put, a lot of work in to be able to put this into place, and it definitely is a good deal, a good idea to do it. So just, and I appreciate the fact that there's a way to work it into another fund, but without taking it away from that, if we needed to support it, that, I'm just putting that out there as a question.
No, it's a good point. I would say, I feel like with a project like this, sustainability is far cheaper than startup.
Okay.
So for them to write a grant to start it up is
Is the
huge.
bulk. Okay.
That's the curve you're getting over.
Okay, so it's not something, and certainly with the intent that if we needed to work it into a budget to fund it, but it's like when we started the pre-K program, we got a grant, the state put it out there that we could do this, and they would fund it for, the first 1 or 2 years or whatever it was, and the first thing that Mr. Backus said when he brought it to us was, this is an optimal, we wanna jump on this, but once this 2 years is done, it's not something we're gonna wanna drop. So the board started to plan ahead to be able to continue that program. So that's the reason for my question, is to be able to, but you've answered it, and certainly I appreciate the work that went into being able to put this in place, so.
Yeah, I can also add that we have an underutilized textbook line in our budget at Caravel, for this reason. We don't have a room like that we continue to upgrade,
To feed.
and we're going away from as many textbooks as we've had in the past, so we don't necessarily use that every year.
Thank you.
Well, with that being said,
I'll make a motion that we, proceed with this grant.
One second.
any more discussion on the Lieber Foundation grant? All those in favor? Jessica?
In favor.
In favor.
Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for
Thank you.
Nicole about what's going on at the middle school? At this time? No? Okay, all right. Thank you, Nicole. And you too, Brittany.
You're welcome.
Personnel issues.
So at this point, I wanted to ask the board if it would be okay for admin to check out if they need to. They're at home remotely.
Sure.
Mhm.
I really thought it was important for them to weigh in.
Absolutely.
You've heard from me for the last 3 months, I think, and there's no way I can take credit for what we're doing. It's been an absolute team approach, and so I wanted you to know the work that everyone's been doing. A good chance, I don't know if everybody knows this, but a lot of highlights about being proud of people. I got numbers yesterday. In the month of April, RSU 87 delivered 19,450 meals.
Can you imagine?
Which is
That's
amazing.
incredible.
That is amazing.
And when I think about who is involved in, I mean, it's everybody.
Everybody.
Everybody. And so that's been fantastic. I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
And think of the number of students that wouldn't have, that might have been in a different situation
Mhm.
without that
Without it.
supplement, without that supplement, so. Great job.
Kudos to everyone.
Thanks,
Awesome,
everyone.
Awesome, thank you very much.
So personnel, we'll start with our personnel sheet. Lots of changes. It's funny how we go from having not many to a whole world of them. First and foremost, Mr. Ring from Carmel Elementary has resigned his position. He's going to be taking the CTE director job at Northern Penobscot, a mile from his house in Lincoln.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of his dream job. So he will be heading that way, and we've already started the process of finding his replacement. We hope to jump on that very soon. New hires, we hired a new 4th grade teacher in Carmel to replace the empty position from this year. She's somebody who did some student teaching with Ashley Jackson over there, and we're excited to have her on. She's excited. She's already started some of the work with Allie Cookson. Also, we offered the principalship at Caravel to Nicole Middlesworth. Just to kind of explain how that process went, we had a hiring committee. We got a nice round of applicants, and we sat down and we chose people that we were going to interview, and then we got sent out of school on March 13th. And so we kind of put the process on hold, and things got really busy at that time, and Nicole took over at Caravel and in the role that she'd been playing all year, because I was super busy. And so she really did a lot more at Caravel than I was at the time, and just naturally she did a fantastic job. So we reconvened the interview committee, and unanimously nobody really decided they wanted to do interviews anymore. They felt like she was the one, and so that's the direction we went. With that, we had some positions open up. So 2 transfers. Ms. Malachi, the coach at Carmel Elementary, has moved to the reading recovery position for Diana Cookson, who retired. And Catrice Hinton, who was 2nd grade, has moved to kindergarten for Pam Wigan, who retired. And that leaves us some vacancies. So the principalship in Carmel is open. Now the literacy coach there is open. We had initially advertised in-house for that coach position, but then when Mr. Ring resigned, we had some interest in-house. I sent an email and said that we were going to fill the principalship first, and then you have that person be able to help choose the coach there. So we're going to wait a little bit on that one. Now grade 2 is open in Levant. Special ed teacher here, I know that they've done some interviews, and we're close there. We have an anticipated grade 5 position here at Caravel. Music teacher would be open, and we're still looking for a bus driver. We just haven't done a lot of work with it yet because we haven't needed it.
And the ed tech and special ed at CES, is that?
Yeah, we advertised that earlier this year, probably February. We had a student move in, we had a need, but then before we were able to fill it, we went out. And so that student will be back next year, and so we will plan to fill it for next year. We just haven't moved on it yet, where nobody was in school.
Do we know if we're gonna need other positions with what we have coming in for special ed?
We may need, yeah,
Kindergarten's a lot of kindergarten.
we'll have some need. We don't 100% sure exactly what that's gonna go. That's something.
But will we, while we're looking for this one, we kind of keep that
Yep.
in mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we need a vote on the new hires?
Yeah.
We do.
I think you can act, for both of the personnel things we do, you can act as
Yep.
on the sheet as a whole if you'd like.
So we just need a motion to hire Allison Bover and Nicole Middlesworth.
I make that motion.
Yes.
second it.
Okay. Any discussion on those two positions? No? All those in favor of Allison Bover and Nicole Middlesworth? Jessica?
In favor.
In favor. Thank you.
So now we also have to nominate teachers to move positions for next year from probationary to continuing contract with to stay where they are. So we have that information ready for you. If I give you one of those or not. And so this one's two-sided. So on the first side, it talks about our employees who are second year, who will be moving to second year probationary, so their first year this year, who will be moving to third year, and then new teachers who have been probationary, but we're recommending they become continuing contract. And then on the back side would be our teachers with year 5 and beyond experience.
You'll just make
Do
a
you guys
motion
wanna
to accept the whole.
do this as a block? Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, that's up to you.
Make that motion.
Make a motion to move everybody from the probationary contracts to their next year? Is that what you're making for this? Yeah, okay.
Second.
Any discussion on any of these positions? No? All those in favor? Jessica?
In favor.
Thank you.
Excellent.
COVID-19 update.
So we have been working very hard to finalize what things need to look like here in RSU 87, the way we do business. And we are working towards reaching out. It's time to reach out to communities again. And so the first thing that we've done is we've come up with a plan for end of the year. And what we are proposing is that we stop student instruction on May 29th, which would be the Friday after. A lot of regional superintendents are ending on the 5th, but for the same reason we're talking about the 29th. We'd like to have a couple of weeks to work with the teachers. We feel like that's more beneficial than an extended week of packet work. We're getting a lot of frustration from parents. It's very difficult. We have another one going out Monday. The last material pickup with two weeks worth of work. We had probably 50 families in the district that didn't come and pick up work, and we had to chase down. And we fear that that's going to continue to get worse. Principals, myself, I've had just this week, I think I've had 6 parents contact me with their concerns. And like I said, some of them are special ed students, some of them are some of our stronger students. It's very challenging to educate in this way. And you have to understand all that kids have going on. Anybody who has anxieties around things that are coming out right now. And we have kids that are scared and they don't really know where things are going, and that's affecting them. And it's hard to have conversations with parents. I had a conversation with a parent this week, and I said my number one, look, we're trying to educate, we're trying to help, but we do not want to disrupt the dynamic at your dinner table. And that's where we are starting to struggle. Parents and kids are starting to fight more. Lori talked about the need to see teachers more. They need our support. Mm-hmm. And so if this is something that the board supports as well, what we'd like to do is we'd like to start planning with our curriculum team, our coaches and admin, for meetings for teachers for that first week when we don't have students. We still would like to reach out to students for social, emotional, but just no academics, because then the teachers would have to prepare and work and they wouldn't have time to meet. We really are seeing a need for many types of meeting for teachers, like number one, vertical meetings. So all teachers right now know what their kids are missing from March 13th through the end of this year. And we can have them meet with the next year's teacher and explain what they're missing so that that teacher can begin to plan for what does that look like. Because what we can't do is play catch-up. We can't start the year playing catch-up, we don't have time, our math curriculum's 180 days. You know, if we take 2 weeks doing math review, there's 2 weeks on the end of the year that we're gonna miss. And if we take that structure, we're continuing our kids behind. And so our approach is more along getting a good head start. All of our kids will come back, even though it's unfortunate, they'll come back on the same page in September. Everybody's behind. And so if we can get a good head start, we can give our kids an advantage. And our goal is to focus on interventions and instruction, focused instruction.
So will there be any plan for any type of summer work for any of the students, or?
If we can, so.
You know, some of the pioneers.
Yeah, so we have two.
Ones we know that are gonna.
We have two types of students that we can service in the summer. One would be ESY, Extended School Year. And we have a pool of students, a small pool of students that before March 13th, we had established. They had already shown some regression. And so we would invite them in for summer school. Well, now we have another batch of students, I would say everybody with an IEP, that we feel we'd like to offer some extended school year through a COVID-19 group. They're not necessarily a group that has shown regression
Right.
but they're one that we'd like to. But we're really waiting on guidance from the state. We don't feel like we can do that remotely. I spoke to the parents of 3 special ed students this week. All of them told me the same thing. When it comes time for summer school, if it's remote, I'm out. If you can get them in, I support it. And so, and I agree with them, it's just a matter of what can we pull off. And so our goal would be that first week to set up meetings so that everybody can meet and start that planning, and then that second week, which would be the week that we would be done. We get done on the 12th this year. A lot of other schools get on the 18th. University of Maine has offered to do some morning professional development virtually, and they said that we could even give them the topics as superintendent, so we're working on that as options, but just continued professional development with teachers moving through. So we go back to materials on Monday. We're giving out 3 weeks worth of materials on Monday, because that seems to be the most that parents like. The thicker the packet that goes home, the more stress that we receive from parents. And so 3 weeks would bring us to May 29th, and then which is a Friday, and then we have 2 weeks of school after that.
And
So as a student sitting in a classroom, if I were sitting in the classroom and without all this extra outside stress, as a student sitting in the classroom, the teacher walked up to my desk and handed me 3 weeks worth of work, I would figure that I was drowning already. So, I understand that there's no real easy way to do this. I do think that there are some things that I would like to have seen done a little bit differently. But I think that handing students more work than they would have had in the run of a regular day, has certainly added to the stress that our students are under.
And also, quite honestly, it's continued maintenance work. We're not sending home new learning. When we offer new learning, we're trying to do it project-based, so that instead of sending home, say, decimal work that a kid has never done and they have to get in that conversation with their parent, we're trying to do it by project. So the kid chooses the project, and if they come to a point where they need some help because it's decimal they don't know how to do, then they can reach out to the teacher, then they can, reach out to mom and dad about, this has to be a decimal, how does that work? It's just it's the only way that we feel comfortable offering it. And so we've been doing maintenance work since March 13th. What does that look like come June 5th?
And our teachers are reaching out to our students.
Yeah,
and
that's become increasingly challenging, being able to get a hold of students. Let's just say, so the first 2 weeks, we had a lot of success. It just slowly has faded away, and it's been harder for teachers to connect with kids.
I found this in my packet and looked at it today. And every so many years, 10 years, it's changed. You got this many courses and it gets deeper. It gets deeper. Then the last thing it says here, and we have not added a single minute to the school calendar in 8 decades.
Yep,
I think that's something to think about.
It's unreal.
yep.
And this list that's on the left.
And just trying to cram it all into a
Yep.
shorter period of time. And I do understand that this has been a difficult learning period. But I heard similar frustrations at the meeting Monday night, expressed by, conversations in, and meaning no disrespect, but to the quality and the value of the education that our students have been able to get. Technically, they've lost a whole year. They've lost the whole year, through no fault of anybody's, but they've lost a whole year of, because whatever they learned before March was gone, and then the bottom fell out, and then for, God bless technology, it hasn't done us any favors. Not as much as everybody's expectation of the capabilities of it. But
I
hopefully our
don't feel
students
that
will
they've
bring.
lost, I don't feel like the students have lost all of that. I mean, the last few months, yes, but I
But
think we've
to
gotten-
not, I think what I'm saying in that is to not be able to take what they had and continue to build on it. They
They
had,
lost that,
so
right.
they lost a whole year, because prior to that, everything was a building project. And then the bottom fell out, and their whole world changed. So the distance between what they had learned, the bottom fell out, and then struggling to a whole new way. What they had learned prior to that didn't necessarily stick with them at this point. If you ask somebody, you know, some of our students, if you ask them what they learned in January, they wouldn't be able to answer the
I
question.
think that's the work that we're giving them, is so that they don't lose that part of it.
It's, you know, it's a frustrating
different.
time.
It is very
It
hard.
definitely
It
is, so,
Uh, It's been frustrating for teachers too. We are a profession of people who fix
Absolutely.
things,
yep,
and we can't fix this.
Can't
We didn't
fix it.
cause it. I did run this plan. I worked on the MEA with the association with it,
mhm,
and they back it. They had similar concerns for teachers. What we've all found, I don't want to speak for everybody, but remote learning is remote work is a different schedule. And we've all found that we're working a lot. You know, teachers find themselves, you know, at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night answering emails from kids. I can speak here at the middle school more than the elementary schools. We have a large group of kids that they don't start their work until later because, and that's been less and less, but if parents aren't home and you're in middle school and you have younger siblings, you're in charge of that.
absolutely.
And so some of our middle school kids don't even get into starting their work until after supper.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the union was concerned about the hours of teachers and the difficulty, and also making sure that if we do work with professional development teachers, that it's organized. And that's really our goal. In order to do that, though, we really need to think ahead and give us some time to plan that for them.
Well, and I think by getting done early,
Yeah.
that's gonna give us a lot of, the staff a lot of time to prepare for the fall, and just come back in the fall full speed ahead.
Is there a way to send like a refresher packet before school? I mean, we're talking about sending home 3 weeks worth of work. Is there something that we can send home prior to, we're gonna send our teachers and get all this and get them on board with where they need to start, because the beginning of the year is gonna look totally different. It's gonna look totally different to our students too. So if we're sending home 3 weeks of work to get them done at the finish of the year, can we send home a couple of weeks of work prep to get them mindset geared up, so when they walk in that first day, they've got it.
Yeah.
They hand it to the teacher, I've got 2 weeks worth of work done. Not, I've done it remotely, well, supposedly I've done it,
Yeah.
but I really haven't.
Right.
They physically have a packet that has to come in and be signed off, so that it's a little bit of a refresher
Or even just see,
before
for the
they
teachers
come.
to see
Where they
where
are.
they kind of,
Yeah, we've started
something.
that planning. Hate to say, administratively, we have 3 plans for return right now. The first one is our least favorite, and it would be remote learning, but they're saying it's possible, so we're trying to plan for that. The second would be a hybrid model, where they allow schools to open, but we have to follow certain social distancing protocols. And so we've talked about do we get half the kids in the morning for a few hours, and then half in the afternoon, or do we do
Certain grades at certain
a
times.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday schedule? So we are planning, if we can get kids in under any means, that would be better than the remote learning. And of course, the third plan would be for a full return to school as normal, but with preparation for remote learning if things were to come up. And I can tell you, we've already had discussions about, it's quite possible that next year we can pull off not having any snow days. Not that remote learning is key or clutch or can save the day, especially under the circumstances we're in, but right now when we have a snow day, it goes to the end of the year, and those days are very unproductive. So if we know we have a snow day coming, teachers can use what they've learned about remote learning to say, hey, today's Thursday, it might snow tomorrow. You might not have school. If that's the case, you're gonna do this.
You're gonna do chapter
which
3,
extends
and you're
your-
gonna
yeah.
answer the questions at the end of it and send them in.
So they can extend learning from the lesson they're on, or they can introduce so that the next lesson that comes in is a little easier to do. And it is more, I can tell you, it is more beneficial than what happens on June 16th, which is where that snow day might go. And so we've had some conversation around that. We're also, tomorrow, finalizing grading procedures. As you would expect, we have very different ways that we look at things. And so we've hybridized our report card to show a kind of a habits of learning model of how are kids working. We're gonna ask parents for feedback on that. We're gonna ask kids to rate themselves. We're gonna ask parents to talk about what they saw out of their kids' strengths and weaknesses for just those skills that we usually do ourselves on page 2 of our report card. And still, what we collect for work is all over the place. We know that kids need to do the work, and we need to credit that, but we're also getting guidance that we shouldn't take work back because it could be would need to be quarantined, and to get all the work back at the end and expect teachers to be able to grade it would be a challenge. And so part of our return of work is, if people want to return all their work, they can, but really asking parents to think about representative work. What are you seeing that is a good representative of how your young adult or your child's been working at home? What shows you think their best skills? And so we're going to give them some guidance on that moving forward. It's been a challenge, and
How are you gonna grade them if you can't see what they've done for work?
well, we haven't got any work back yet, but that's what we would ask parents to return what they would see as a representation of the quality of work that their child is doing. We've been really struggling to find growth in writing. In particular, writing has been a struggle through this remote piece, and so being able to have them allow that feedback so we get a good idea of where things are is what we're looking at. Some people every time we talk about work, it causes stress. Some parents have thrown away work, or kids have lost a packet, and what do I do about that? Or I don't want it all, I'll give it all back. We said we'll take it, but really just trying to let them kind of show us some of what they've been doing. As far as the grade that kids are used to seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, March 13th was right after our second trimester. And so that grade for the first 2 trimesters is what we kind of capped as what their grade for the year will be. There were a large group of students here at the middle school when that happened that we didn't really have them where we wanted them. And so we took some steps with those kids to try to remediate some of that remotely, very specifically with the teacher, so that those students could fix some of that, some of the struggles they were having during school. And then the rest of that piece, as I said, will be more of a habits of learning, where you can kind of grade yourself 1, 2, 3, 4 on how much grit did you have, what about perseverance, what about responsibility, and so that we can hopefully try to instill some learning in our kids for the skills that they need to be successful in school, at the very least. They've had a good run at some self-directed learning, which is a challenge for kids, and we can give them some feedback and build on that in the future. That's our hope.
It's been a tough situation, that's for sure.
For sure. You're gonna need a vote though to end school on the 20th.
Yep.
28th?
29th.
May 29th.
So do we don't have to go for a waiver or anything?
I'll have to get a waiver from the state for student days that kids have missed, but the state has offered up.
Right,
Yeah.
I just knew that Gary had mentioned that he had to put in for a waiver, I didn't include
Yeah.
that in my report.
It's been a
as
little
far
bit
as the date.
different, so there are districts that are doing the 29th, like I said, a lot are doing the 5th. I hear from a lot of superintendents who say they'll run me out of town if I take one student day off, we need to go right to the end. But that's just really not the feedback we've been getting from our communities. We know they're working very hard, and really just a matter of, I guess our plan comes from what's best for kids, and what's the best way to respond and not react like we've had to, like they forced us to coming up through.
Yeah.
Alright. Well, do we have a motion to allow the superintendent to end school on 5/29/20?
Motion to end school on May 29th, you said?
And switch to,
Second.
we will support the calendar year for teachers through the 12th.
Yep, through the 12th. I should put that on there too.
Yep.
Just for student,
That's exactly my motion.
for student
Yeah.
learning. Right, I have a second on that motion.
Second it.
Dalston.
Any more discussion on changing the date? No? All those in favor? Jessica?
In favor.
Thank you. Anything else on the COVID-19?
That's what we got for now.
Okay.
And we all wake up tomorrow morning and it's all gone.
Just been a drain.
Yeah.
Number 9, ESG infrastructure updates.
So, things are progressing with ESG. We're a little bit behind, and that's due to just getting contracts signed and some of the hoops that people have had to jump through. Workers got a waiver. If they're coming into work, they don't have to quarantine, so they can come in and work. I explained a little bit of ESG's safety protocol, which was good to know that they had that in effect. The project manager moved into Herman for 1 year on May 5th. So he's here. He met with Matt and I today for our first 2-week meeting, moving forward, that what we'll see for work for the next 2 weeks. We're starting with lighting. So a company that they work with designed, engineered the lighting diagrams and specs, and they sent a project manager. But we'll be hiring local contractors to install the project and work on it. First thing that we'll see done is the lighting in the gymnasiums. On the 22nd and 23rd, we have the floors being refinished, and we asked them to make sure that was done, because we didn't want the lift going all over the floors after we've done it. So
Right.
they will happily do that. They're also going to start quite quickly with the univents in the classrooms.
Okay.
So our goal will be to clear out 6 feet on each side of the univents that we have. The replacement univents are the same size, but the air handlers will go beside it, and it really based on how it is on the machine, so we'll have to put another unit in beside that. But those will replace the vertical pieces that they were proposing at first that weren't available for quite some time. These ones are available now.
So these ones are gonna take up more, they're gonna take up more room there, because we were gonna put the vertical ones in the closet
yeah.
or something, so.
Yeah.
that-
Those ones, that was our best choice. Those were significantly back ordered, or would take a while. And so we kind of went back to the drawing board, and we were able to find this unit, which is the same idea, just horizontal, and we can still use our counter space. So they'll lose a little bit of shelving, but they'll still retain their counter space.
Good, good.
We're The generators will be starting, pretty soon. We contracted with the same, person as, Levant,
Levant.
so we're gonna be getting Gillette, generators, one here and one at, central office, at Carmel Elementary.
Huge.
The generator that's there actually belongs to the town of Carmel. So we've been working with Kevin, and to outsource that to somebody locally if they want it. And so that's our goal. I think we have that set up. I haven't heard specifics, but ESG is gonna, when we take that out, they're gonna deliver it to,
Wherever it needs to go.
yeah, in town. A lot of work, Their projected end of date is October 5th, and that is only commissioning of boilers and, temperature, air balance sort of stuff. They promise we'll have at least one boiler operational, when school starts. Their goal is to be out of all the classrooms by, I believe it's August, the teachers start August 24th as of right now, and they know that they'll need some time before that, so that week of August 17th, I believe it is, they plan to be all done in the classrooms, and so
Wow.
it's going fast.
This is exciting to
So-
be, scary but exciting
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
able
It
to.
is.
And I'll be able to, our plan is to have weekly, 2-week meetings, so that, like, he prepped us for 2 weeks. Next week, we would meet again, and he would update us on where we are and then what that looks like moving forward. Right now, we don't need to quite meet that much, so we met today, and we're gonna meet again before, Memorial Weekend, and he'll kinda update us on some of those pieces. We close on, the bond from the main bond bank on May 21st, and on May 22nd for the additional ESCO lease, that piece that goes with it. So all of our financing will be available. Then that was another reason that was a little bit tough to get started as soon as we wanted to.
Money.
Got no money.
You can have it.
It's very exciting though. And Matt and I, after our meeting today, really realized it's gonna be exciting, but it's gonna be busy this summer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna be all over the place. I'm gonna have a hard time. I'm not a stay out of that kind of thing. I really like that sort of thing, so.
We have good weather,
Yeah.
too,
I think I'm gonna
Watch
be
it all
very,
just kind of
very
like.
busy and excited, and I'll probably, if I ever have a conversation with you about something that means nothing to you, but it's very exciting to me, just go along with it.
Yeah.
It'll be all right. We'll see the excitement in your
Yeah.
eyes. It's
Right.
good. It's good.
All right,
Oh.
sounds good. Budget and finance.
Make a motion that we pay them and see that none go away dissatisfied. 2 to sign.
Second it.
Second from Phyllis. Any more discussion on the warrants? Jessica, there are 4 of us here that can sign tonight, so just so you know. All those in
Sounds
favor, all those in favor of the warrants? Jessica?
In favor.
Okay, thank you. All right, the proposed budget for,
So the next piece, Jessica, did you get the email I sent out with the additional documents?
I did.
Okay, good. I think everybody has one of these now. And so, we've been working on budget for a long time, and it's a little bit different year this year. Normally we'd be finalizing a budget tonight, but we got a little extra time, and that helped us because it's been a very busy year. I'm trying to get numbers from a lot of people to pull this together. And so, I think what's important about what you're seeing is, as a proposal is, I wanted to get something for everybody to look at, so that we could plan a budget workshop and have some conversations.
Good.
Of note, the first revenue sheet we made for this year included contractual 4% upgrade for teachers according to the contract, and a 3% raise for hourly employees. And that revenue sheet came up as a 3% increase to the towns. Just pay raises, nothing else that we'd wanna do. So I took that one at first as a starting point, and I thought the next thing that would be good to do would be, we'd having a lot of discussion about budget points. So we did our wish list. We put everything in that we wanted. And that came up at 18.34% increase, which I stopped breathing for a little bit, and And I will say that, I've reached out to Shannon and Jake a lot just to make sure that we're kind of on the right page to get close to something we can all look at. And, these budget points kind of show the budget that you're looking at, the summary of the lines and what you'll see in here. This isn't the full budget, it's just the summary of where things are and where they have been, so you can be prepared to talk. This budget that you see right now that I propose is built on these budget points. There's a, this is at 12.92% of an increase. So there's obviously things that aren't on here that we took out. And there's some things on here. Fuel was a $26,000, $28,000 savings for us by locking in at lower rates. That was very helpful. That helped us bring things down.
This is about where we were last year for an
It
increase.
is, yeah.
I believe we might have even been a little bit higher last year.
And I have not met with the town managers, but I have reached out to them just with where I kind of felt like that increase would be, and I promised them I would meet with them, and they both appreciated that. I didn't think it would be fair to go to them until the full board has kind of weighed in on where we wanted to go, and it's really nice to work together with the towns. It's very clear that we're all on the same page, that our budgets work together, and that we represent the same tax base, and so it's refreshing to have those
I know
conversations.
Kevin praises you always keeping in contact, so.
It's important.
He didn't have that before.
Some of those conversations, I mean, some of those conversations can be tough, and you're not always on the same page, but it's okay. I mean, that's why we have them.
Right.
And you gotta make sure you're right, and so, I thought it'd be a good starting point to get something that was kind of middle of the road, and go from there. So what I would see happening is, I'd like to finalize a budget in the June meeting. And so I would see, scheduling a budget workshop for the full board. I don't know if that's something that would be easy to do virtually. I would prefer to try to meet in person, just the board, less than 10 people, space ourselves out, even if we need to do it in the gym.
I was just gonna say, we can
And,
always do it in the gym.
I just see a virtual conversation being challenging,
Just
maybe
because
for
we usually
some.
have a lot of discussion on certain items.
Yeah.
And stuff, it'd kind of be nice to.
And I want that. I want people to feel like, they're part of the conversation, and I don't want to miss out on anything because it's virtual. So if we can pull that off, I'd like to. And then once we have something that the board supports, I'd like to meet with the town managers and kind of fill them in. I know that I can speak to Carmel specifically. Kevin knew that we were doing a lot of work and had planned ahead, so he had a number that he had planned us to come in at. And when he and I talked, he was hoping I would be below that, and we're far below it, and he's gonna need that. I think one thing we're planning on, you heard Melissa Davis talk about Title and CARES Act funding. The CARES Act funding is gonna be a significant amount of money that comes through the title, but it's to be used only for things affected by COVID-19. So I can't take that money and say, hey, and let's put this in with it. It has to be because of it. And so, honestly, we do plan on spending some of that, but right now, currently, my goal is to bank it. All of that CARES Act money that we get to bank it, because I feel like we might have a curtailment, and it's not just gonna be us that's suffering. The towns will also be struggling. So together, next year could be a tough budget year. And I think.
And you can still use that because of the effects
Yeah.
of COVID on this year.
Yep.
Whatever, at the end of the year, whatever we see that was affected by that, we can use that money to.
Yeah, there are some things that I would jump on to spend some of that CARES Act funding, like iPads would be a good one. I mean, honestly, we don't know. I read the newspaper and saw one of our parents who was involved in something far away from here, in another town, and is incarcerated because of it, and we hadn't heard about it. We didn't know where the kids were, and it's scary. Like we probably won't get that iPad back. I don't even know. So I wouldn't mind using it for some of those, because I would hate to break our technology budget to make up for that. I would also jump at the opportunity to use some of that money if they allow us to get kids in, especially special ed students, to pay teachers and not break our budget that way. But my goal is gonna be to bank it. I'm very concerned about the state of the budget next year. The state of Maine you know, makes money in a lot of ways, but as far as revenue, two huge sources are income tax and sales tax.
Right.
And those are two things that aren't going right now.
They're not gonna, yeah, they're not gonna be effective.
And I think that's something to think about, with the, as we think about the budget moving forward, where do we want that to be?
And some people not working, or not,
Yeah.
just don't have a job.
A lot of people aren't. 19,450 meals in a month is a lot.
Yeah,
That's in a month.
In a month. We're planning right now to continue with, we have a waiver to continue with summer feeding like we have been
Just gonna
to
ask
June
that.
30th. We're gonna, as of right now, we're gonna continue to the 12th with both towns. We don't have staffing to pull off continuing through the summer. And then we have to change to, after that, we have to change to a different feeding program anyway, which we've done in the past. And we do have 2 people willing to work at Carmel Elementary, trying to piece that together. Another issue that we're working with that affects us is we have a great deal of projects going on in kitchens. Walk-in
I was just gonna ask.
freezers, refrigerators.
Right.
And so that's gonna affect kind of what we're doing.
Some of our planned work is
I do
gonna-
say, I feel a little bit better. One thing has changed that I was hoping. As of right now, they expected a lot of support for families to go through schools, and that's why it's been such a priority for us. I did hear yesterday that they're tweaking the way that they're doing SNAP benefits and welfare benefits to give more money to families that way. So that way, instead of giving that money to families through us in reimbursable meals, they're gonna give it to them in the summertime, so that it doesn't have to fall on schools.
Mhm.
Because it's been daunting to try to pull off. But our communities have been very, very supportive of the work we've
Definitely.
done. I've heard a lot of positive, and even the, you know, some of the frustration and negative, because we get that all around, even teachers, you know, I've had a few negative moments too. But even that stuff, we're still getting a lot of support. People, you know, they know that we're all in this together. That's helpful.
So I guess what we'll do is everyone should just take this. This is the sheet that we usually get with our budget book. We just don't have the detailed sheets behind it, so it's not a big book.
Right.
Mhm.
We just did a couple years worth of what was budgeted and what was expended.
Yep.
So if you guys wanna take looks at, you know, take them home, take a look at them, and then if there's questions, you can email
Yeah.
Mark and
Absolutely.
kinda help us before we get to a workshop.
And it's
Me
a
too,
good, it's
'cause
a good
I
starting
haven't,
point.
we didn't go through the accounts individually,
Mm.
so, but this is a very good, and that number's not kind of
Mm.
Not as bad as it could have been.
yeah, exactly.
Not
So,
as
and
bad as
still
it could
getting
have
in
been.
many things that we need to get into the budget. This also includes the debt service
Mhm.
payment and everything too, so for the first.
Yeah.
So, maybe just look at it and then we'll schedule a workshop tonight. I think we should wait till closer to June.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
The first.
I'd like to give us a little bit of I guess my thought is to give it a little bit of window in case, you know, we have a workshop meeting, we don't really get closure, so we
Mhm.
can
Yep.
meet again.
To meet again, right?
Yep.
And I'll say the front page, we set it up just like we normally would. July 14th is the referendum, that's for sure. Generally, we go the Thursday before for our budget meeting, but we are not required to do that. We can do it at any point, and I would just like to wait and see on June 1st, it's supposed to go to, you can have gatherings of 50 or less. So if we can do that at some point, I'd like to take advantage of it.
And that still may be with masks and all though,
Yeah,
right?
but we could do a budget meeting with 50 or less, and I think
Cause we only get,
True.
my thought on it is, if they open it up in June and it's something we can pull off, it might be worthwhile to think about in case numbers go back up. Cause if we can do it in June, and then if numbers start to go back up and they decide to
Close us
put
down again.
more restrictions on us, we won't be able to do it. I don't know
Right.
how we can pull off a district budget meeting without having input and people here.
Right.
And so, you know, if they do on June 1st, put that down to 50 people, I think at our June meeting, we may have some discussion around, do we wanna do our budget meeting sooner to pull that off? Not printing budget books. Our budget this year does not have the money in it for budget books. It's not on the budget points, but that is in next year's budget. It's $6,000 it costs to print the budget books, and it's something that the town managers asked for. We are working really hard to get a good fund balance, because that's gonna support us for next year, and so I'd like to not print them this year, where it's not budgeted.
I don't think there wasn't a lot of,
I don't think there was a
People
lot of
upset about not
conversation
having it
around it
last
last
year.
year.
No.
No, I
I
don't
think a few
think it
people
was.
actually went into the superintendent's office and
That one, yeah.
looked at them and stuff, therefore, I don't think we really had any
No.
negativeness about it. Now, the town book, that's different. Everybody wants their town book.
Another thing that would be beneficial, I'm writing a letter for the towns about the budget. I'd like it to be about the budget. I know that the Levant book goes out on May 27th. So,
pretty early.
you know, we have to, in order for me to get that letter to them, we gotta have some idea of what we're thinking on budget, you know. In the past, it's been very specific about what the increase is, how much that is for each town, and what the budget entails. And I'd like to be able to
Well,
do that.
I mean, we can have a workshop with 10 or
Yeah.
less.
Yeah, we can do a workshop.
So it would just be
And it would be 7 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
If we need to, we could even do it, if there are requirements that we put it out on the web, they could come and do it, and we could still be under our 10 number. Another thing I would like.
That way we could get it before you submit something, we may
Right.
say, okay, yeah, this
You'd be
looks-
able to submit something
Something a little
with
more-
some numbers instead of just
Mhm.
words,
Right.
you
Right.
know. And you can always put in there that, whether it's right or wrong, that these are the numbers, but we're still working on, you know.
Yeah.
Because
Any changes will be a
any,
district budget.
right, any changes, this is the proposal, but, you know, that it could be changed. And I think in the world we're living in, everybody needs to be able to be a little fluid and expect changes to.
One thing I would like all the board members to think about, I mean, there are some pieces of a budget that people support, you know, everyone supports, and there are some that we'll have to discuss. There is a lot of hiring going on right now, and so one thing I would like to do is have some conversation at the board level about where we stand on some of the positions. For example, in the budget, I've stretched Brittany Taggart's half-time math position to a full-time coach. That position has overgrown its reach, and as a half-time teacher, how we designed it, Brittany doesn't have time to meet teachers because she's teaching her own classes. And so I'd like to move that to full-time. And if I do that, that would open up a new 6th grade position. And so if that happens to be, as a good example, if that's a position that the full board really supports, I'd like to try to anticipate and hire a 6th grade teacher. I can advertise as anticipated if we feel like that's something that the board's gonna support. So there are some decisions, if we can come to ground on some of it ahead of time, would be very helpful.
And that's one of the ones I think you did in this one.
Yep,
You
it's
put
here.
in the 6th grade
Yep.
and you put Brittany's
Mhm.
to, so.
Yep.
Okay. Do we want to, because we're ready to set meeting dates anyway, do we want to set a date for a workshop? In this
May.
month? Jake, do you have, you're just Monday nights, right?
Just Mondays,
It's the 7th. And they need your letter by when, Mark?
Levant will need it by the 27th. It won't take me long to write it. In fact, I can draft it up with, I just would like to be as specific as I can. People will deserve to know.
What day is that on?
27th is a Wednesday.
Wednesday?
So that's when they want their letter.
Mhm.
Levant wants the letter.
And I mean, I'll give them a letter regardless. We can only do what we can do.
Right.
Do we wanna just try to meet in 2 weeks on a Thursday for a little workshop on the budget? And
Seems
does
like
that-
we gotta do something like that.
Right, yeah, so what's that date, Shannon?
That's the 21st, cause that weekend is Memorial Day weekend, so.
Mhm.
And
like
that's on
anybody's
a-
gonna be
Then we're
doing
getting too
anything.
close.
That's on a Monday or a Wednesday?
The 21st is on a Thursday, Phyllis, would that
Thursday.
work for you?
I think
Workshop.
so.
Does that work for you, Jess?
Jess, are you there? What time?
Thursday, what works for you? Is 6 too early for you?
No, that's not too early.
Yeah.
6 o'clock on Thursday, the 21st.
21st, 6 o'clock for a budget workshop, does that work for you, Mark?
Yep, absolutely.
So in, I guess in the meantime, if everyone just wants to look over their sheets, and if you wanna see something in more detail, let Mark know before the 21st, and so we'll have something to talk about.
Absolutely.
And that way, if we've expressed an individual question, you can address the question, we can address the question at the meeting, and everybody else can know, cause they might have
Yeah.
something else to,
To add
Yeah.
to it.
to add to
And
it.
I honestly will
Yeah.
add, like, it's not a finalized budget, I just really wanted to try to make it as easy as we could, to try to get a good middle ground.
Absolutely.
I expect maybe it'll go down, or maybe it'll go up, or maybe some things will change,
Right.
Yep.
but that's kind of the process.
Yep.
We'll meet here or?
Yeah, here.
Yeah. All right, that's the first meeting. Then the next meeting would be on June 4th would be our next board meeting.
Yep.
Does that sound good with everyone? That's okay? All right, good there. Any follow-up or requests for information? Anything for you, Phyllis? No? Okay.
I just want to apologize for my frustration when I first came in tonight.
Don't worry about it.
Life gets heavy sometimes. I do appreciate all the work, that has taken place. You know, this is not an easy time for anybody. And I think that best efforts, it's not like any of us woke up and said, okay, when a pandemic hits, this is the plan we're gonna use and we're gonna build on it. We didn't have anything to build on. We didn't have a starting point. But I think that this has certainly been a lesson to all of us, in our own lives and in our educational lives, that we do our best to be prepared. So, I just wanna say, like I said, I apologize for the frustration, but I do appreciate.
And I will say that, we have heard from staff, and this goes directly to you guys, that a lot of appreciation that they work where they do, because they don't feel like things are, you know, politicalized, and that we're being, you know, they feel support from us, and that comes from you guys as well. And that's what we want. We don't compete financially with a lot of places around us, but they don't compete with us for what we can offer in other areas as well. So I appreciate that from you guys.
Jessica, anything from you?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. G?
All set.
I'm all good too. All right, we will adjourn at 8:12. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jess.